Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful world of video games. We're here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and on the YouTube machine, absolutely motherfucking free. This week, I'm joined by the resident referee. That's his new name because he hasn't won anything. It's one of the very first members of the clan, the OG, one of the three OGs, perhaps some people would say. It's Logan. He's back. Technical issues nearly scuppered us, but you've overcome that with some new tech, and you're back here for a second round on IGC after some long hiatuses before that.
Yeah, I think what was the last one we did a couple of months ago? Well, it's probably longer than that now.
Kick the shit out of Outriders.
That's what we did. Yeah, kicked the cunt out of that. I'm back now. It always helps, doesn't it, when I'm playing games? Like that's the key. If I ain't playing games and I fall into them ruts, then there ain't much to talk about. So the key is to keep playing some new stuff.
Yeah, that does help, but there's sometimes other reasons to get people on, but particularly in this instance, there has been some gameplay playing and some impressions. I've played through what we're going to chat about today, but I get bored of myself talking, believe it or not. So I like to get other people's opinions and slot them in, and I'll be asking the questions. So on the docket today, officially, we'll definitely get round to this. There may be some bonus stuff towards the back end, but as we're talking about off air, it depends on the amount of waffle. We've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Wrath of the Druids DLC. And people are saying that fucking came out weeks ago. And we go, yeah, but it don't matter. That's what we do here. We play all the shit so you don't have to. And then we can report back, no matter how late it is. Honestly, I was talking to Adkins before this, and there's about 6 games we've got. Some that are a year old that we haven't got round to speaking about that we've been playing recently. So you're not tuning into this podcast for up-to-date info generally. What you're going to get is late doors opinions and hard-hitting facts about these games post-release. And hopefully you find it interesting or helpful. Some people buy stuff late doors, didn't they? Because, to be honest, if you're looking at the financials of it, buying a game day one with the season pass is the most stupid thing you can do. Like, the cost saving to be added just a few months later is extortionate.
Absolutely, yeah. It's what I prefer to do most of the time, but the trouble is with this world as it is there's very little else to do, so you end up just chucking your hard-earned pounds at whatever you can get some entertainment for, and there has been some games to play.
Yeah, and one of the big ones, I mean, you say there's not a lot to do, but once you buy Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you soon realise that there's a fucking shitload to do just in the base game. So we're going to get cracking on that now. Before we go into the DLC, I did want to get just some thoughts on the base game itself, because that's been played through, probably 100 odd hours if you're anywhere near the sort of speed I was playing it. But, I mean, before Valhalla itself, what's the sort of franchise experience with Assassin's Creed for you? Has it been on and off, or has it been off? Is this the first one? How long has it probably been since you've played one, if you have even played one previously?
Yeah, so the only previous experience I've got of playing the game is a short escapade into Black Flag.
Ah, yes.
I can't remember why when I was playing that. All I remember just getting snarled up in some sort of castle, and I was like trying to find the enemies to kill and stuff, and it was just I was getting a little bit frustrated by it. I don't know why. I might have just been in a bad mood, but I think I gave it 1 or 2 sessions, and I was just like, nah, this isn't for me, this one. It felt a bit too stealthy for me, I think. That's what annoyed me. So that was the only experience. And then now naturally I love Vikings, so there's no two ways about it. So
the TV show or just Vikings in general?
The lore, the TV show. I've always liked like Viking movies and anything to do with that. I'm all about it. Yeah, Norse stuff. I'm banging to all that. So it was on the radar anyway because I was like, hello, it's basically Vikings, as in the TV series. It's Vikings the game, and I
Yeah,
was like, surely that for me is a match made in heaven.
yeah,
But I have to be honest, when I kind of jumped into it, I kind of knew what I was getting. A bit of an open world game, linear story, collectibles. I was like, that'll do. What I wasn't prepared for was the amount of time it wanted from me.
mm,
Now, I was expecting 30 hours ish of content from it and then to walk away.
yep,
And I got, well, over triple that. And I I really liked it at first. I really
mm,
enjoyed it. I liked, unlocking new stuff. I like the storyline, the characters, but it just becomes a bit rinse and repeat, I think. And it wears you down to the point where you literally just like, get it done. Um, and then on top of that, obviously I was trying to get that settlement to level 6, I think.
yeah,
And because towards the end I'd been trying to just sort of breakneck it a bit. I wasn't doing all the collecting, and therefore I arrived at the end of the game with not enough materials to upgrade my settlement.
mm,
So then had to go back around the map, randomly looting places that I'd just picked just to see if I could get enough materials to level up my camp to level 6 to tick off a quest. Um, so yeah, I mean, overall, I enjoyed my experience in the game, but it's just too long, and that's without doing numerous side quests and activities and bits and bobs, really.
yeah. I've definitely got a map full of stuff in England that needs to be gone back to. Like, I quite
Mm.
enjoyed those. I think they were called world events and the mysteries, which were like mini side quests essentially.
Mm.
But sometimes they were sort of they would show them on the map as a little blue dot. But sometimes you'd go there and it'd be something else like piling up stones to a certain level, and I'd be like, well,
Yeah.
I can't be, I ain't, no. I've been doing this 100 hours, and you're asking me to do that. So yeah, it certainly was. I mean, too long. I know people say, well, how can a game be too long? If you want to just get to the stage where you feel like you've achieved something and finished it and seen through the story, like that is a long, big investment, like 3 figures worth of hours. Um, and it certainly tested my patience. But what I will say about Valhalla is it's a very easy play. Like you mentioned that it
Yeah.
bounced off of Black Flag a bit because of its stealth like focus. And what they've done in the last sort of 2 and 3 games, there's been 3 of them now since they've made like a big shift in the gameplay. Is they've made it a lot more. I guess I feel like they've directed players just to play as a warrior rather
Mm.
than hide in the shadows, which you can do still, but certainly you can wander into any fight and deal with them and kill everyone. Like you're more than capable of doing that. So it's like, why would you sit around in the shadows when you can literally walk in there and cut people apart? Not to mention the Viking setting. It's like that's kind of like fits how you'd expect them to behave, really.
Mm. Yeah, I think that I did read up on it before I bought it because I was a bit concerned about this stealth stuff, and they said that it's that's still there for you, but it's really you can really take the fight to them, and I was like, well, if that's the case, I'm all for it. I mean, I did try and do some of the stealth. It's not that challenging to do some of it. It's a bit more challenging to do others, but it's like one of those games where once you get the mechanics and understand the distance that you can be from the NPCs and the enemies and stuff, and
Yeah.
it becomes pretty easy to do. Um, it's just that it just become a bit like the people change, the areas change a bit, but the ultimate what I'm doing isn't that much different. I'm
Mm.
there. I'm trying to help someone get on the throne so they can be an ally, and that's it. And that's basically what you're doing throughout the regions in England.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was I did enjoy the game, but I just felt a bit fatigued by the length, I think.
Did you take a break at any point? Like, did you stop playing it for like a couple of weeks, or give yourself like some
No,
space, or no? So you just
no.
ploughed on through.
Well, yeah, I mean, I must admit, it's weird, isn't it? Because when you probably need that break more, you become more determined to actually get this done, and
Yeah.
you take less breaks than you would have done at the beginning. And I found myself doing that, I think, which doesn't help. But yeah, it was just it's difficult because you don't want to bash a game for having too much to do, but at the same time, as you say, that is broadly just completing all the quest lines I've got. 100 and something, 102, 103 hours, I think I ended up on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that is over 3 times the length of most sort of standard story length games. So yeah, it is, but overall I enjoyed the experience. I thought the gameplay was pretty satisfying. It gave you a good variety. I liked all the lore. Yeah, it's just a bit too much for me in the end, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's strange you say that because I mean it's no doubt it's a big one, and they done some really, I thought, some good stuff with the story and how your choices affect certain things. Like you can almost in some instances choose who you're going to put on the throne in certain regions, and then that will have
Mm.
consequences or it'll play out later on. And I felt like they could have done a bit of a better job with that, but perhaps giving each region like 2 full acts, like half the amount of regions you've got to do, and have 2 story sessions based on it. The first one where you go and sort out who's going to be leader, and the second one perhaps you go back and deal with the mess that you've created potentially, and you see a bit more of those characters because there's like a dozen regions. I think it might have even been more. Like you just kind of do that one thing, and then you don't really interact with them too much until
Mm.
later on when you call upon them for aid. So a tighter story would have been helpful. But to be fair, like bang for your buck, there's a lot there for the money that's been outlaid for people. I know some people just enjoy having just one thing to focus on, and this will certainly, we've both spent 100 odd hours into it and got nowhere close to the collectibles required to complete that part of it. So if you're going as a completionist, the world's your oyster, really.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to touch on those just quickly, those kind of choices. I remember texting you once I'd done or when I was in the first area about one of the choices, and I was going, "Oh, what did you do?" sort of thing. But I think I quickly found that it becomes rather inconsequential. Like you make a decision, but to your point, you don't ever really. There's no consequence. I didn't feel. In the end, I could become pretty blasé about what I wanted to do. I didn't fret too much about it, and obviously I got used to Avel's character, and I knew what he wouldn't do anyway. But it would have been good for them to, as you say, play on that a bit more, rather than you kind of make them choices, complete the area, and see them once or twice more in the game, and that's about it.
Yeah, well, that's why I would have preferred if you kind of go back and really dig into what you've done and what the actual impact that has had on it. I mean, there are choices like where you can choose to spare someone or kill them, which has an effect on how the game plays out later on and who you can meet and whatnot. But yeah, generally, like you kind of deal with a region, then that's it. You just leave the mess behind if you've created one, and then you're on to the next one. So definitely something I feel like they could have done better with. So we get the announcement that we're going to get this Wrath of the Druids DLC set in Ireland. New story, they're claiming. Now, first of all, I'm surprised you even got this after you just spent 100 hours in the base game and said that's too long. Yet it somehow sucked you back in. What are you thinking here then? What was you thinking of jumping into Wrath of the Druids? And cause I'm assuming you didn't buy the gold edition or anything to start with. This was a separate purchase that happened as the DLC pack come out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about unfinished business, isn't it? Like when you do 100 hours in something and then draw the line, like you think, I haven't, I haven't drawn the line though, have I?
No.
And I have to be honest, I didn't expect it to be, again, the length that it was. I kind of expected it to be, 5 hours or something.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
then, yeah, and then to walk away from it. But again, I didn't get that.
No. How long do you think you spent in the DLC?
Over 20 hours, I think,
Yeah, it's
or around over or around that.
yeah, it's fairly meaty. Um, my my biggest complaint with the DLC is that I don't know if they could have even. I don't know if they can solve this because it's set in a set period of history, a set period of time. But you get on that boat and you go to Ireland. It might as well be England. It looks exactly the same. It's got the same green. And I know that's what Ireland's like, But it's like, could you have not picked a different location where the terrain's got some variety to it? 'Cause it just felt like within an hour, it's like I'm just roaring around the same map, just rearranged here. It would have been cool to go somewhere a bit further out, maybe somewhere a bit exotic and whatnot. But we didn't get that. We got, another green rolling hills of Ireland in this case, and they've just obviously got Irish accents.
Well, or not, as
Or
the case
not,
may
in
be.
some of them don't. Like an
Yeah, I
American's
agree.
running right there.
Well, yeah, it did instantly feel like you sort of it kind of felt like everything that you'd known before. You were like, right, here we go then.
Mm.
Um, like it would have been good if they, I know some of the Vikings travelled, to Russia and to the Middle East and
Yeah.
stuff, and to get a bit of a change of scene would have been
Go back to
nice.
Scandinavia, a bit of snow. I know you've
I'm
got.
glad I got away from that.
Well, to be fair, that is an awful. Is it Finland? I can't remember if it's Finland or Norway now.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
Norway's the snow, Finland's the.
Oh yes, yeah. There's another map and whatnot. But yeah, I mean they could have done something else other than Ireland, I guess. But
I mean, to be
they didn't.
fair, it follows the law of what the
Sure.
Vikings actually did. So, in a way, I kind of think they're actually trying to be true to the stories. Honestly, it seems like whoever's been designing this game has literally watched the whole series of Vikings
Yeah.
because there's a whole big thing about them going to Ireland in that, and then
Mm.
there's a whole big thing about them and a battle in Paris.
Right.
So, that's what I think they've done. But at the same time, it's like you're making a game. Like it has, and when you've got 100 hours out of people on green terrain, then give them DLC, which chucks another 20 to 25 hours at them of the same. It's a little bit like, right,
Yeah.
come on.
What did you think of the actual kind of story here? Because I think you go over there to meet a cousin or some family member, and he's trying to sort of cozy up to the would be king. And it's a similar kind of setup where you want to get the regions on your side and and kind
Yeah.
of conquer the island with these set of people. But how did you find this particular kind of story? It's obviously a bit short, well, a lot shorter than the main game, but
Mm.
shared a few of the same themes. I felt like.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally in terms of structure, it's exactly the same, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
go around, get people on your side, destabilize the enemy, big battle.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and I'm okay with that, I guess. Um, I found the story a little bit inconsequential. I really didn't connect with that king at all
Yeah.
on this one. I was kind of a bit like, I don't, all the other ones I kind of felt like I wanted to do it. This one I was a bit like,
Mm.
if I could stab you in the back, I probably would. Um, but yeah, I thought it was okay. What's her name? The woman
Yeah.
who's got a Scottish accent somehow, but is in Ireland.
Could be Scottish. That's what I wandered
She
down.
weren't though. She was a pagan and everything. She was
Yeah.
that really annoyed me throughout the whole thing that she had a Scottish accent. I was like, why would you not pick someone with an Irish accent?
No.
It felt like a real oversight from them. Um, but I thought that she was a pretty strong character. Um, and I think without her, it would have been a real slog
Mm.
in terms of sort of having something invested in that story. Because I feel like it all kind of revolved around her. Um, but what I guess confused me, and I still to this day don't know whether I think it's a good thing or a bad thing, but they kind of changed the game mechanics a bit in that you had all these outposts that you had to go and get to collect resources, and you
Yeah.
needed the resources to advance with quests and things. I was a bit
It felt
sort of
like
like,
filler, didn't it? It was like let's put a little gate up so you don't steamroll through the story. Like you're gonna have to now go off and do a bit of busy work, collect fucking cloth or whatever it is to upgrade the trade post. Yeah, that was a pain. And I also didn't. appreciate. There's another cult to track down. By the way, that's exactly the same structure. There's no difference in that. I think it was called the Order in the main game. They call it a cult in this one. There's a set name for them, Druid cult fucks. But there was parts. That at some point it got to, even in the main story. It said, "Oh, you need to go and deal with these two cult members before you can progress to the next part of the story." But it's not just dealing with two cult members. You've got to find 3 clues for each of the cunts. So you've got to visit 6 places, 7 and 8, to then go off and kill them. And I was like, I don't mind them being there, but I didn't like the fact that it's meant to be a bit more of a tighter experience, and they still chucked in roadblocks just to slow me down. It felt like I went off and killed all the cult members anyway. Eventually, I was like, I'll do it on my own time, thanks. But they weaved it in.
Even in the main game, I found it weird how the cult and everything you're doing kind of it's sort of interwoven, but not completely. And I don't really understand that. It's either there or it's not. And it was similar with this one. It's kind of like throughout the story, you'd come into contact with these people, but then there'd be some random ones who are part of the cult that you'd never see that you've got to go out your way to get. And I don't know. It seems a bit odd. I don't really mind it, but again, it's the same as the first game. You then got to go off goose chasing for clues. Again, you might if you felt the need, or there was a reward for actively investigating areas and searching and stuff, then you might come across. Well, you would come across these things naturally, but largely there's very little reward and reason to go around looting stuff. Especially in that second DLC where you're already powered up. You know, you're not really trying to level or anything, so it's kind of pointless. And then, to your point, you go and have a look at the cult on the order list and see where they are, and it's like, right, I've basically got to start from scratch, going around, finding clues, goose chasing around, trying to get up that fucking hill.
Yeah. It's not.
Right. Right. My biggest problem that I think I texted you about in this game was that on the key points, there's like one castle on top of a hill that you have to keep going back to.
Yep.
And you can fast travel to the certain points in the map. And normally they're over the key places where you need to go to obviously make it quicker. But for some reason, on this specific one, there's kind of like the castle's on top of one hill, the save point's over here on top of another. So you spawn over here, and there's like this huge gully in between the two. And you have to try and navigate yourself down one every time and then get up the other.
Yeah.
And every time I was like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And every time I couldn't find it. And it just started to really piss me off in the end. I was like, why have I got a fast travel point to every key location on the map in the original game and on this map? But for some reason, the castle where the king is, who I've got to keep reporting back to, it makes me spend 5 to 10 minutes every time getting there via fucking orcs.
Send a fucking pigeon next time.
It was ludicrous. The thing is, there's a fast way to get down. Like you can zip wire down back to it, but then you can't get back up. So you're just bollocks.
Yeah. There's some strange things in it. Like to your point you mentioned earlier about where you would have to collect resources. I think they were dressed up as king's favours. You'd get like these faceless kings, and then they'd give you like 3 quests that you can go out and do, and you'd get a reward of like a resource of sorts. And the idea was that you've got to collect enough of the resource to fucking do something with, or send off to war or some bullshit. But yeah, there's just some strange things in this. It certainly wasn't a home run. Because I'd heard such good things about the Odyssey DLC, which I didn't play. I played the base game, and that was like 55 hours, and I was blown away by that. I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't play any more of this. And they've doubled up here and gotten away with it. So I was expecting big things, and I was a tad disappointed with this DLC, I will admit, Wrath of the Druids. And for disclosure, I bought the gold version when I first got the Xbox Series X, because Phil decided not to release any fucking games on it. I had to go to a third party, and I thought, right, for the third party, first game on the Xbox, I'll just buy the top edition, like as the first game, as a little treat. And this was included in that. And I don't know what else is, because as we get on to, there's going to be more support coming. I don't know when this season pass or this gold edition ends, and I'm going to have to start putting hand in pocket again. But it wasn't what I was expecting. A little bit more from this overall, if I'm honest. It just felt a bit too samey, like you said, and some of the structural things they did really did get my fucking back up.
Yeah, like the terrain was similar, but it was definitely a lot more hilly, which
Them
is
hills.
fine. But they're a ball ache to try and traverse with the horse and get back down again.
Yeah.
So actually, it just made it more irritating to play because if you can't fast travel to certain points because they didn't put them on the key locations. Um, Most of the time, you had to fast travel to the outpost, then get on your horse and go there. But then you got to try and find your way up and down sort of 2 or 3 fucking hills,
Yeah.
and it's just become very irritating. And as you say, if you're doing it for 5 hours, 6 hours for DLC, even 15 hours, you can probably forgive it. But upwards of 20 something hours for it, it starts to become quite irritating.
Yeah. Not
But
not their best work, I'd say.
it just feels there was a lot of filler again, like I just didn't need. I felt like the story went on too long. The characters largely were not good enough, I felt, to keep me interested in them.
Mm.
But then is that partly because I was still fatigued from completion of the original game? I don't know.
Yeah. It's not an easy one, but then that's just the inherent problem of doing 100-hour game and then asking for
Mm.
more time to do the DLC. Like, that's just something you have to deal with. You're gonna have to come up with something good to get people happy and back interested. Any more to say on Wrath of the Druids before I'm gonna make you give it a little scory dory? It's caught him cold.
Turn that light on, I think. Caught me cold, that did, the
Well,
darkness.
it's that rain that's been rolling over, and this afternoon it absolutely
Mm.
thunder rocketed it down earlier
Mm.
on. Nearly caught that puppy outside, but he got away with it. He would have been really not happy with that. So the sun's gone, which makes it dark again. Whereas last week you couldn't buy a bit of darkness at 9:30 when I was trying to get some sleep. Had that getting him through the fucking curtains. But
But
any last thoughts
I'm
before?
thinking whether I regretted my time or not.
What
And I
did you?
still
Can you
don't
remember how much
think
you spent on it? How much was it to single? Can you remember? Was it like 16, 15 quid or?
so. I bought the 2 DLCs. So I didn't
Oh,
just buy
okay.
this one individually. I bought them both. I think it was about, I don't know. I think I'm gonna chuck out like 27 or something
Right,
for
yeah,
them.
that
That
sounds.
sounds about right.
I'll go on the Xbox store now and see if I can find it. I tell you what, this store is something else on desktop. Phil, pull your fucking thumb out of your ass because I can't find nothing. So season pass, which I'm assuming
Mm.
is what you 32.49. So it may have been discounted at some point by the time you got round to buying it
Yeah.
because you didn't get this on release, as far as I
It
remember.
was. It might have been, but for some reason I think it had a little bit off,
Yeah.
which is what convinced Steve to get it, I think. Um, but
It's 20 quid on its
yeah,
own if you wanted to just get Wrath of the Druids.
I think that's what I might have looked at. I think I looked at it individually and
I
together, and
mean,
just
10 or
went,
more, I'll get double.
well, I thought chances are I'm going to download it anyway,
Yeah.
so I might as well just future-proof myself and try and basically not sting myself next time.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's really difficult because I feel like I've shat on it, but I didn't hate the experience. I I enjoyed overall my time in the base game and in the DLC. I think just the overriding feeling is that if both had been 20%, 30% shorter, they'd have been a lot better. And I
Yeah.
think that's just my continuing feeling throughout playing this.
Mate, there's
Um,
hundreds of hours getting poured into Rocket League, though. So there is time there to be
yeah,
had. I've seen it.
I I think it's just because I like a story game, but I also like to complete them.
Mm.
Um, and I don't think I've ever had a story game that's taken me that long
Mm.
to complete start to finish, and it's just not what I want really from a game. The only thing, honestly, I think if it's anything other than Vikings,
Yeah.
I would have nearly chucked it and just gone, I ain't doing this.
Bounce off jobby.
Yeah.
So they may have lucked out with choosing the Vikings. Go on then. What will be a score for Wrath of the Druids? Out of 10, jobby, with a point 0.5 modifier, should you choose to do so.
I'd probably say it's a 6.
Yeah.
That feels.
6.5 I'd written down here for mine.
Yeah, I mean, I was toying between the two. I think I think broadly it's okay. I mean, it's not broken. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a bit. I think it's just a bit dull. I think that's what I thought. The setting's a bit dull. The characters are a bit dull. But I'd probably say if someone likes Assassin's Creed or Vikings, if it comes up on offer or whatever, then I wouldn't say don't get it. I'd say fill your boots for the right price.
Phil's got it on offer at 35 UK pounds at the moment, or 36 UK pounds the base game. So you'll get your fucking money's worth if you're just looking at content per hour.
What's that? 36p an hour?
Well, something like that. Can you argue? Some say you can't. Do you have any interest in scoring the base game? I'm just going to throw it out there. You don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd probably give the base game a 7.
Yeah, it's as easy as that. Bronze.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I gave it an 8. I actually quite enjoyed the base. Like it's long. I enjoyed the setting, the fundamentals, and it just being England is quite cool. Yeah, it was held back by being a bit too long, but I think that I didn't like Odyssey at all. I think I gave Odyssey a 6, so it got fucking bumped up a few grades.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a fan of the franchise, I mean, for me, again, I think just because of the Viking piece, it kept me going and will keep me going because I like that lore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find another thing, I just don't find the interest in upgrading my gear. I think there's too much going on. Like, I think there's just a few bits that I would prefer to be kind of meddled with a little bit. But overall, I enjoyed my experience. I think it's a pretty solid game. There's plenty of content there. Just gets knocked down a notch, I think, for a bit too much.
Interesting. Well, August the 12th, there'll be the second part of your season pass dropping, Siege of Paris. So that's inbound. Don't really have any. There's a few details that have kind of come out about that, but really, I wanted to steer the discussion in a different direction. Not necessarily focus on previewing Siege of Paris because I don't think we quite know exactly what to expect. Hopefully, the terrain. Well, again, it's still going to be Europe, though, isn't it? So them green eels could be back to haunt. I don't be knowing how they're going to do that, but it'd be nice if it looked a little bit different. But there's not going to be built up cities, is there?
Well,
or is there? I don't know. I don't know my history at this time. Gaps.
You'd hope
Communist
Paris,
Russia and Nazi Germany, they taught us. So any of those, and the partition of India, any of those. But this Viking stuff, all the fun stuff, they binned.
The partition, yeah. I think
Gandhi, Ali Jinnah, clash.
I think it should be better, right? It just depends how much they expect me to do it in the gutters of France. That's the concern, isn't it?
Yeah, be interesting. Hopefully, he'll be good. But the key point behind this is that they've got a 100-hour base game. They've got 20-hour one expansion pack, and sandwiched in between the first expansion coming out and post expansion, they've done lots of smaller updates. They've done lots of events. They've done essentially what I'm getting at is this game has been alive pretty much since launch with constant. You've seen them on your dashboard coming in at 20 gig updates, randomly drop in, and you're like, "What's that about?" And it's like, "Oh, it's the River Raids mode we're adding," and they're adding smaller quests and different like festivals that you can take part in. All this good stuff. How does all that sit with you? Because it's all that stuff's free and optional. It's just there for people to go in, go to the settlement again, and I don't know, earn some armor that's specific to that particular event. But it's typically something that you'd see perhaps in a more of an online focused game where they're constantly dropping updates in and new content to try and pull people back in. But they're using it here for a single player game to keep you engaged, and hopefully you go off, I guess, and buy the DLC that comes after that. But how does that sit with you in terms of a single player game, giving it a go?
Well, I was trying to think again. The fact that the DLC is less like a traditional DLC in terms of how it's structured and its length, adding in new mechanics and doing things differently. It feels like they're moving or testing the waters, I guess, on it becoming more of a service than a just sort of here's a game, this is it. Beyond a few bug fixes, that's all we're going to do. It seems to be, they did special events for certain times of the year and things. So it's a bit odd to have that in a single player game. And then as I say, you got those special, limited time quests and things you
Yeah.
can do if you want to. Again, it's all optional, so it's like you'll take it, wouldn't you, for nothing?
Mm.
Um, but it's a bit of a strange, or it feels like a bit of a strange way for this franchise to go because it's, well, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a natural evolution of the game. And if you've, I think what a lot of people have struggled with, or what they want to do, which isn't a problem for me, is access those, different time periods and use those different characters that they've previously played with. Um, and perhaps perhaps that's what they're looking at, is that although in this one they're going, he can have Ireland, you can have Paris.
Mm.
What about if you're in the Animus and you're then going off to Roman
Yeah.
times, to Egyptian times, to you know the plague of 2020?
Yeah, I mean we'll talk about Assassin's Creed Infinity, which is I think what you're alluding to there, sort of some of the rumours and the stuff that's for the next phase of this series. It looks like they're going to go down that route, and some of the stuff they've done with Valhalla is kind of maybe testing that. It's like, how do we keep people engaged on this game? Okay, this is all working. If we do move to a more of a live service type model, we've kind of tried it out in a single player realm.
mm,
I guess the other part of this Valhalla gluttony of content is that they've come out and said there's going to be another year's support for Valhalla. So typically, the last few Assassin's Creed, for those that aren't aware, they normally get a year's worth of content. Comes out November, the content ends November, December the next year, and you get 2 DLC packs, a load of updates in between that with armor and small events and smaller quests that you can do, and then it stops. Well, given some of the stuff that's come out recently about a shift to a platform, as they're calling it, in Assassin's Creed Infinity, Valhalla's going to get an extra year's worth of support. I mean, Logan, you seem like you was at the end of your rope with Wrath of the Druids, one expansion in. You might end up with 4 by the time it's all said and done at the end of 2022.
yeah, I've been wondering what to do about this next one. I don't know. I don't know. I think I texted you as well, and I said I don't know whether I want one of these every 3 months. I
Mm.
think I'm just going to gradually enjoy it less and less. So I'll see how I feel about it and what's on the menu come August. At the moment, you know, would I probably start it and have a look? Probably, um, but I kind of want to take it a bit slower.
Mm.
Um,
What about next year? Could be another. I don't know what the plans are. They've not said, but there's going to be this game could live for another year potentially. At some point, does Steve go? I've got to draw a line in the sand here and I'll walk away from this Viking adventure.
I don't really know. I mean, it depends what next year's or the next year's worth of
They
content's
leave
going
it
to
on a
look
fuck
like.
off big cliffhanger in Siege of Paris and go, right, you'll be coming back.
I mean, chances are, yeah, I probably will. The thing is, for me, it's slightly different because I'm literally coming back for the lore. Like, I literally
Mm.
feel like I'm largely playing out kind of the Viking lore, which I'm enjoying. Um, if it was any other lore, I'd probably be less fussed about it and just go, well, I'll just wait until they bundle it all together at the end and just play it then.
Yeah, yeah.
But then if you got 4 sets of DLC, 25 hours each, you then got 100 hours of DLC to play. So
That would
fill your boots for
that
that.
would be a sickener, wouldn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I kind of wanted to keep dipping back into this, and where I was up to date to start with, I got the game at launch, finished it by the end of the year. I was never really under sort of behind, if that makes sense. I was able just to go
Mm,
like I've had even a month off, or I can go back in. It feels a little bit fresh, but as soon as you start stacking up expansions or updates, and you want to see it all, you're then
mm,
under the cosh. And I don't know what another year
yeah.
will hold. I hope that this extra year of support was already planned and baked into the strategy. Otherwise, that screams of right, we've got to come up with something now for the next year. Like, I hope somewhere in Ubisoft HQ there's like, yeah, that's a 2-year game. Don't worry about it. We won't announce it till later. Hope they haven't got to like summer of this year and gone, we need that for another year, by the way. And they're all sitting there going, right,
Get to the storyboard.
yeah, what are we going to fucking do here? So, yes, gluttony of content for Valhalla. But as I've mentioned earlier and alluded to, this Assassin's Creed Infinity that's been... I can't work out what it is because it's all very vague and it's all sort of just clever wording, but it sounds like we're going to have Assassin's Creed Infinity, and like you kind of alluded to earlier, perhaps you go into the Animus and you go in there and there's one setting for this, for the sake of argument, there's a Viking setting. You go off, you go and do that game, you come out. So you've I guess you purchase Infinity, and it comes with one bundled campaign, quote unquote. Then added to Infinity will be, I don't know, a pirate one set in a different time period. Then you said a Roman one, blah blah blah. And rather than it being separate games, it's like, okay, you go into Infinity, you kind of choose which experience you want to go towards or which campaign, and you tick them off that way. I don't know how they can. I mean, they're merging the workforce between two of their big studios. They're going to be, so there will be more resources on this. But I mean, how on earth do you contain that? And because there will be people out there, Logan, that will sit there saying 100 hours is brilliant. I love games that are that long. Like, how could they possibly turn out a 100-hour campaign in this Infinity model where things are going to be, as it sounds, turning over quite quickly? And will they add bullshit into it, as we see with live service games? Are we going to... I mean, there's already bullshit in Valhalla. You can buy booster packs and all that stuff. Fortunately, the game, unlike Odyssey, in my opinion, doesn't block you and make you feel like you need to go to the shop to improve things. But I can just see this instance where that's happening, where there's level gating going on, and because it's under this Infinity banner, this live service platform, that it's like, well, yeah, just a fiver to boost your XP for the day and then grind it out and get to the next stage. It's concerning. On one hand, it could be really cool. Like, if you could just jump into that and there's 5 different campaigns of different time periods that you could go into, and guess what? They could all be shorter, perhaps. That might even be a plus that comes out of all this. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how I feel about it. As you say, I haven't seen much about it at all. It's all speculation, it seems. But it seems like what they're doing, when you see what they're doing with Valhalla and what they're talking about for Infinity, you can see how they're teeing it up. I don't know if it's going to work. I mean, how would your characters cross over? Would, progress in one somehow carry across to the other?
Would there be an overarching story between them all? Perhaps like a narrative weaved between each of these?
It becomes very complex, though, doesn't it? And it could become pretty messy pretty easily. So I guess, it's an interesting concept, because Assassin's Creed kind of, as I understand it, introduced this Animus piece and stuff, and it kind of gave them the license to do what they wanted at any point in history.
Simulation,
really,
isn't it? So they can do anything with it. It's clever, really.
Yeah, do what you like, go where you want, when you want, as to whoever you like. Like, that's, really giving them the license to, well, literally to do whatever they want. But the problem is they've already touched on a lot of these key periods already throughout the series. So
do you try and retell it? It's been a while.
This is the trouble.
It's been a while since that original one, and you can't really go back and play that because it's not a good game. The original one, like maybe we go and revisit these places. Maybe revisit all these other games, and they bring in the new mechanics. They've got a baked in narrative they could stick to, or time periods. That could be one way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It just always boils down to the same thing, doesn't it? How much is it going to cost me off the bat, and how much is it going to cost me ongoing, and is that worth it? And how much am I going to be pressured into buying, add-ons or whatever they look like, boosters?
Yeah. So the rumour states, this was from Schreier of the Jason variety out of Bloomberg, He said that the project has a codename Assassin's Creed Infinity. There'll be a large online platform that will continue to grow months and years following its release. The report also claims that while previous Assassin's Creed games were set in specific historical periods, Assassin's Creed Infinity will be set in multiple different periods, and this could expand even more over time. So it sounds like you go in and there's options to go and choose, Valhalla version or Odyssey version or Origins version, which is Egypt and in Greece, ancient Greece, because people got snarled up on the quiz about that. Poor old Edkins lost a point by not saying ancient. So we have to say that for him, that it was set in ancient Greece, otherwise he'll call us cowards for taking that point away when he said just Greece.
Also opens up the possibility to go to the future.
Wow.
Dun, 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 dun. Halo in
that
Assassin's
crossover.
Creed.
That's what Phil's been working on. It'll be interesting to see how this pans out. I mean, it's going to be years away because we've got another year of Valhalla. To be honest, I think every 3 games, like Assassin's Creed originally should have evolved well before it got to Origins, which is where they made a big change. And we had these kind of more RPG combat based ones in Origins, Odyssey, and now Valhalla. Could do with a kick up the arse, really. And there's been so many games that have already come previously. It's like maybe they should just try something new. But if they riddle it with microtransactions and bullshit, it's going to get people's backs up, and it's as simple as that. So we'll have to see how they play it. Let's move out of Assassin's Creed land and look at some of the money you've been flushing away lately. Because you've joined the next gen.
I have.
Put 2 fingers up at Sony and gone, give me that Xbox Series X. Phil Spencer, he's a friend of the show, so he's happy. But tell us why you went and got one, first of all, because it's been out a fair while and stock has been limited, but there have no doubt been opportunities before this. And kind of what your impressions are since moving off, because you went from the original Xbox One, which, in all honesty, is fucking old.
Yeah. So that was a March 2014 bit of kit, that. And, I'm never an early adopter of anything. It ate my bag. I'll sit back, let them, iron out the creases if needs be, and then jump on it a bit later. And I was fine with that. All the games that I was playing, Assassin's Creed, Warzone, Rocket League. Like, there's nothing there.
Outriders costing me on load times.
Well, so I was playing those games, and then it was basically Outriders that I come to where I was like, "It's struggling now, isn't it? Like, it's not happy." So I kind of made the decision there that if we're going to get to a point where it's affecting my experience, then I need to upgrade that. I can deal with locked 30 frame rates and things like that, but if it's struggling to load in and just generally process these games, then it's probably a good time to upgrade. So yeah, I've got my stock finder, my stock picker on the lookout, and I think literally within a day you went, right, here you go, this is the story. So game had a couple lurking in store, tweeted them, got down there first thing in the morning, and got myself a Series X.
As simple as that. In person,
yeah.
They had got stock in there for 2 or 3 days. Unbelievable.
Yeah, they. I was there first thing in the morning. I was like, "Have you still got it?" They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, I'm not insane." I was like, "I've been struggling to get hold one of these. It's not like I could just go online and order one at any point, and you're sitting on copies." But obviously, they've wised up to it. I had to buy a bundle.
Yeah.
So, but I lucked out a bit there because FIFA, it had to be a chart game, and FIFA was in the chart for like 17 quid or something. So I was like, well, I'll have that then.
Yeah.
And I needed a new charging cable because they've obviously changed it to USB-C on the new controller. So I got one of them. So I was like, I've got something already needed and a game I haven't played. So I was like, it ain't too bad. But yeah, I think for about 2 weeks after I got it, every time I booted it up, I was saying to Pete, I can't believe how quick this is.
Yeah.
Just loading up, booting stuff. loading me into games and things. Like it's a noticeable upgrade in terms of power.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, once you have a console like that, you then look at your monitor and you go, well, now I'm being held back by this monitor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I then decided to obviously upgrade the monitor to something that could support 120 FPS. Gives me a bit of HDR as well. So yeah, I mean, it's in terms of both upgrades, it's clear that I'm definitely getting a better gaming experience now. And just to prove that, obviously we reloaded up Outriders the other day
Yep. We
to
did so
to test that
indeed.
out. Much quicker loading, frame rates were much better. It was a much better experience on there. So
Yeah, some of the issues that you raised in that if I would run forward and it would kind of spawn or trigger the second wave of enemies in,
mm,
you would complain on your side that the game would start lagging out and that you'd be like jump it just completely like just go unstable on you. And
hmm
we tested that only once or twice in with you on the Series X, and it
mm.
appeared as though it was no longer an issue. So either they fixed it, or maybe the power of the Series X was allowing it to load those new enemies in and all the AI that comes with it
Mm.
without it struggling and having to put load on the machine.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the basis that you were never seeing that issue.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Now, on your console, and then once I got the X, I weren't seeing it. It's fair to assume that was the reason. There was a little bit of, connectivity where it's not too happy about where enemies are supposed to be, and a little bit of that for me, but that ironed out a little bit after a while anyway. But yeah, like in terms of, it was just a much more pleasant experience to play. I mean, it wouldn't affect my opinion of the game,
No.
um, but it's just a clear upgrade, like
Yeah.
as you'd expect. It's like when you upgrade your PC, you don't, the game doesn't automatically just go, oh,
Yeah.
but you definitely notice that it's smoother, that it looks better and everything. And even going back to play the DLC and jumping into Assassin's Creed, like the difference from playing that on the one to the
Double the
Series X
frames.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just night and day. It really is. So yeah, I'm pleased with it.
Yeah, I think both PS5 and Xbox Series X have good power upgrades this time. I never. PS4 and Xbox One always felt a little bit half baked as an upgrade. I always felt like, they're doing some impressive stuff, but we didn't get a move from 30 frames to 60 frames. That just didn't happen. And it was more like, well, then we had the fucking mid-generation upgrades. There was like, right, here's the real power now. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. And they didn't even do 30 to 60, really. They were focused on 4K and enabling HDR and all that stuff. Whereas these
Mm.
ones, I feel like they're a palpable upgrade on the last gen machines. And like people can notice it. Like the loading in itself is like in some games is a huge upgrade because if you're dying a lot, like that Assassin's Creed, I can't imagine you fast traveling on the Xbox One. That ain't fast. But
It wasn't.
you drop it on the
It
Xbox
really
Series
wasn't.
X, and it is fast travel. So it makes a completely it does transform your experience with these SSDs in there. Like it makes things
Yeah.
so much more pleasurable to play, and the frustration in some instances are just sort of squeezed out.
I think I sent a video to you when I
Yes.
was playing Assassin's Creed of it literally of it loading. Like I think it was between a minute to a minute and a half just to get in my game,
Yeah.
which it doesn't sound like long, but it's significant enough. Yeah, and then now I literally got it, 10 seconds, if that, I think,
Yeah.
and it's just like
And then
bam,
it'll
straight
store and then
in.
it'll store it in quick resume if you don't close it, so you can.
Well, I must admit that's the one issue I do have is the old quick resume.
I don't trust it. It's cocked up a few times for me, especially on Creed. Although I
Yes.
haven't played Pez since the Euros, and it's still sitting there in quick resume. I reckon it's the game in some instances not playing well.
So for me, going back to quick resume in Assassin's Creed, it wouldn't let me save the game. So I think one of them I did it for a bit, yeah, and then I I like went to save and it went nah, like basically can't save it.
Oh,
So I was like, right. and I sussed it was that quick resume. He didn't like it. Didn't like me.
Fucking about like that.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, it's a new bit of tech. I've never been too happy with it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's one of those things where when you've got such quick loading times anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
do you really need that on? Like, you don't
Don't need 6
really.
games stored up there, really, do you, to jump in and out of? I mean,
And it just makes things more complicated.
it's a nice to have, but it's not essential considering, like you said, they boot the games so much quicker now anyway. So that's the real upgrade. Any thoughts, early impressions on your Xbox Elite version 2, I believe it is, which you've only had a few days, but you've spent a day assembling it, it sounds like, and putting paddles where they need to be gone. You had a few sessions of various online games I've been seeing. So has it made you a better play? Are you now not awful?
I'm still awful. The truth of it is I don't really know. I mean,
It's early days, to be fair.
I think I said to you, like, I'm so used to having to do finger gymnastics, to do jumping, shooting, and do certain things that you're trying to rewire your brain to use paddles.
Yeah.
In 25 years, 26, 27 years of gaming, I've never used back paddles on a controller.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm a bit weird because I use my middle finger on RT and I have my index finger on RB, right? But on the other side, I have it normal. So I'll have my index finger on LT,
Right.
and then I have it like that. Yeah,
I'm just doing it for people that are watching. I've got my Xbox controller. Bloody
yeah,
hell. I suppose you haven't got
yeah.
to flip around, but
Well, it's so that I can FPSs I can shoot and throw grenades and stuff
yeah.
at the same time. And it's just I don't think it's something I ever intentionally did. It just happened. But obviously, with where the paddle is on the back, I kind of need to hold the controller properly. So
Right,
I'm
yeah.
having to retrain myself to shoot with my index finger. So I'm trying to do I'm doing 2 sets of rewiring. But
Steve's
it's
fried.
definitely, yeah, Steve just like, the thing is I'll only use that for first person shooters.
Yeah,
I won't use
yeah.
that Elite controller for like Rocket League or for
Right,
playing
okay.
through a normal game. I just don't. The thing is, the standard controller is nice.
Yeah,
Like, it's not a bad controller where I think this is horrible to use. Like, I like the controller,
yeah.
but basically, all you're using this Elite 2 for really is, I've messed around with the trigger stops and that's okay. Again, I've got to get used to it, but really it's for this paddles on the back and stuff. And
Yeah.
I've meddled around with some of the joysticks, but I'm not, I haven't instantly stumbled on something yet where I've gone, oh, game changer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so if you want the review after 3 days, I have to add, I didn't buy this brand new. So
No.
I got this through Amazon Warehouse,
Discount jobby.
discounted at £62,
Yeah.
which is the only reason I got this controller. And I'm fully expecting it to break on me within 6 months. It's just kind of an escapade to see, is it worth it? I think if I just spent full whack on it, I might be slightly disappointed.
Well, that poor
It's a
Pee Wee
nice
fuck's had
controller.
problems with it, innit? He's had like to send a few
Yeah.
back of these Elite
He's had
controllers.
2 and sent them both back. I think he had an issue with the buttons sticking and stuff.
Yeah.
They are, and I've watched so many reviews for it because I've been umming and ahhing over an upgrade on controller for a while. But basically, it doesn't
Scuff.
look. Yeah, it's much of a muchness. They're all got pros and cons, but everyone basically says this is a great controller, but it's made. It ain't gonna last. Basically,
It's crazy, really, because the money that's being asked for, at full price, brand new.
I think it's the most expensive one. I
Yeah.
think uh, I think the Razer ones are still 10, 20 quid cheaper than that.
160
So-
quid here at Argos.
yeah,
160 UK pounds
yeah.
for an official Xbox Elite wireless control. I mean, I know you can get them cheaper if you want around, but you ain't going to get them much cheaper. You're not going to get it under 100 brand new. Obviously, you've lucked out because I think there was a deal that day, wasn't there, where you got X percentage off Amazon warehouse purchases.
30%,
Yeah,
I think
so
it was. Yeah.
you've done well to get that down to 60 odd, but like for that sort of money, if you've paid 160 UK pounds for it, it shouldn't ever break
No,
Because for an extra £100, you can get an Xbox Series S.
it's ludicrous money. I don't even know how they've priced that up to that. In all honesty, I don't know how it sells for that price. It's a disgrace. And as you say, if it was something that would last you, I mean, I think my original controller that I got with my Xbox One was still working to the day that I crossed over. And if it lasted that sort of period of time, it could be justified. But yeah, it's basically a pro controller made for casual gamers, because if you're doing anything semi-serious with it, it ain't going to last very long.
No, it's an odd one. And the thing that, I mean, the major thing that puts me off going down the Elite route, because I kind of get a bit of an inkling for things like that. Like I bought the headsets for the PlayStation and the Xbox. I'll do not a side by side, but I will do a little opinion piece on those two, what's good and what's bad. So I do like these accessories they come out with that are made specifically for the consoles. But the one thing that gets me about the Elite controller is that on the other side, on Jim Ryan's side, he's got a controller sitting there with haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, which to me, as a single player, makes a hell of a lot more difference than having a paddle on the back. Like, I feel like Xbox will eventually release a controller with that functionality in it. So if I am going to buy one, it's at that point. But then I'm scared about the fucking price again, because if it's already £160 without all that tech in it, if fucking Phil starts adding adaptive triggers and motors and all that stuff in there, it's going to be £200. And then the stock sort of PS5 controller is, I think, 55-60 quid, and it's got all that in it, and it's a perfectly good controller.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a lot of it feels to me anyway a bit gimmicky, like being able to change all these buttons around, and you don't really need that. If people want longer controllers, you can get extenders and stuff. It's all that stuff feels a bit gimmicky. The fact that it's wirelessly charged, if you want it to, again, a bit gimmicky. You can charge it in the case through the, it's you go, that's pretty cool.
I do like that, really, actually, the case charging. That is cool. I like the fact it comes in a case, but then it breaks down anyway on you, so it gives you all that protection and then chuffs it.
I mean, when you open it and you see it, it's nice. It's nicely presented. It's nicely laid out. It looks nice. It feels nice. But even when I'm playing with it, I kind of, honestly, what I do is I go, I'm going to only use this when I have to try and prolong how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
That's what I'm already doing with it. And that's not where you want to be if you've spent £160 on it. You want to use it, play it, every day, get comfortable, set it up for all your different sort of games. You can have free preset modes and stuff. And yeah, I think it's just a bit of a shame, really, that it's so flimsy, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel flimsy. It feels solid, but it's flimsy inside.
Yeah.
That's the issue. But
not ideal. But
upgrades all round: TVs, consoles, controllers,
all there. Big session. Just need to get that laptop sorted, so we ain't got to be getting on these iPads. But to be fair, that's held up quite nicely. I am going to talk just a little bit about Celeste and get it out of the way. Well, not get it out of the way, but it's a nice short game. I haven't got to ramble on for 30 minutes telling you about the fundamentals of it or what the story is, all that good stuff. And I've just finished streaming it, which is always quite fresh in my mind. So I will use that time, this little time that we've got left, to chat about that. So I'll play through Celeste, 2 sittings. I think it took me 6.5 hours if you look at the stream, 1 2-hour-ish session and then a 4.5 hour fucking heat bomb that day. And platform game. So I think Adcock's been on and waffled about this, but it was a couple of years ago because the game was out in 2018. Came out to great critical acclaim for story and mechanics and whatnot. And yeah, it's a good game. Like, it's very frustrating. Like, it's a 2D platform that requires you to be pixel perfect at times to get in and around the obstacles they put in the way. The level design's extremely difficult at times, and half of it's trying to figure out what the puzzle is and by puzzle I mean where do you jump when when do you use your boost. You've got like a second jump boost type thing to get past the perilous obstacles they've put in your way. one of the great things is it is very difficult, so you'll die a lot, but it's like instant reset. The screen goes bang, you're back, and you're back in plan. There's none of this waiting around nonsense. There's no real penalty for losing. It does track the number of deaths you have though per chapter, so it's quite fun to look back at those. And one of the key points that was brought up in the reviews was how strong the story was. And to be fair, for a 2D platforming game, it has a lot more guts about it than what you'd expect. Like previous experience with this genre was Super Meat Boy, and that's got throwaway stories and whatnot. But in Celeste, it is short, but they do a good job of kind of giving you an insight into because you're playing as a woman named Madeline who's struggling basically, and going to Celeste Mountain is her way of trying to sort of cleanse her soul and her mind and try and get her head clear basically. And you meet characters along the way, and they've got their own quirks and issues that you suss out and find about. It's clearly a story that's focused in on mental health and panic attacks and anxiety and things like that affect people. So it's quite a grounded story, quite funny at times. So certainly a thumbs up from that perspective. Complaints, really. I mean, this is me wanting to be babied. I would have liked just a map sometimes because I got lost a few times. I didn't know where I was supposed to be going. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, it was so difficult that I didn't enjoy it, because although it was punishingly hard at times, I did get through it. And at times, you can watch that stream, I get very, very annoyed. But sometimes when you're struggling with something and you are able to push through, it's a nice feeling. So overall, a great little game, really. I saw the Open Critic score is really high. I'll just double check what it is. I'm not quite sure I'm in agreement with that. I feel like a lot of that's weighted towards the story because it's a bit out of left field. You don't really expect a 2D platformer to tackle that subject matter. Sitting on a 92, but generally like a really solid game. I picked this up in Games with Gold probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and been sitting there on the hard drive ever since. But I just managed to get around to playing it. So don't know if you had any queries or questions or observations from watching the stress unfold. And then I'll put a little score for it.
It reminded me of Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
Although I thought Super Meat Boy is probably 10 times as difficult than that. It looked in
Don't know. You look at those last levels.
Yeah, maybe there's
ideal.
Maybe, I did unfortunately miss the second stream that I need to go back and watch.
The last hour of that stream is horrendous. If you want to see me getting really the arse ache, twitch.tv/Dimp Digital.
There's a couple of good clips there as well. I think it's everyone. But yeah, I was surprised to see you go for that sort of game, because I think my first thing I said to you is I can't wait for you to get annoyed by it, because I thought it's inevitable, really. But the first stream you were relatively calm, but obviously the cookbox that you were in the day after really got up you.
Well, part of the problem was because I sat there for 4.5 hours playing it. There's no need to do that. I was like,
you did Outriders with it, overcooked it.
Yeah, it could have been a little nice 2-hour session, then I'll finish it off on the next one. But for some reason, I got a bean up on it, and I saw the finish line and thought, I bet I can get that this afternoon if I just drop everything else. And then by the time you get to the end, like, it's funny because when you change levels, it brings up little tips and whatnot. Like one of them was like the collecting strawberries and collectibles in games, it's only there to show off to your mates. It makes no bearing on the game itself. So it's like, okay, that's quite funny. Because, you got Hall going, get all the strawberries. Like, they're fucking pointless, mate. I'm not doing them. But one of the little messages that came up was, most people that die on mountains is due to exhaustion. Make sure you take a break. And that couldn't have been more true towards the end of the game, because I was exhausted mentally and physically by that point, and yet I decided to just be really stubborn and push through it, which wasn't the right thing to do in hindsight. But I was able to come away from it and not feel like aggrieved at the game, because I was aware that was a lot of that was on me. And then obviously the jubilation of finishing it's always great. There is like a little post game bit which I might go into, but once the credits have rolled, that's a tick in the box for Ronnie, so he's happy to walk away if needs be.
Always just have to remember, and I think I said to you again on that first stream, was those games are literally designed to provoke rage. Like you have to do them. Normally there's only one way to do it, and you have to do it that one way, and there's very little leeway for it.
Yeah.
So instantly that will always, get you back up after a while. But as you say, there's something satisfying, I think, in knowing that you've done it the right way, the way that they intended. And it's super frustrating, but you know that you just have to get one good run and then that'll be that.
Yeah, like the times when I'd rarely do a new screen, particularly at the end when it is really tricky, like first time, or do 2 or 3 first time, you just sort of like, not fluke it, but you just be in a flow. They were fantastic. But then you do hit those walls and you're like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to...
I'm never going to get this.
I'm never going to get this. And honestly, it makes things worse streaming it because you're aware that people are watching and you think, I can't sit on this screen for half hour, 40 minutes. It's like, but I might need to. So that just cranks up the pressure, which kind of gives it it puts the game at a disadvantage almost because you're just bound to get frustrated with it. Soundtrack's really good as well. There's like little boss fights and whatnot. There's some excellent music in the game. It's really well designed as well, and just could have done with a little map now and again, just to, particularly if you are going after the collectibles, it'll be nice to be able to just bring up a screen and be like, right, there's a strawberry up there, I'll head that way, because you can get turned around a few times. I did get lost, but other than that, solid 2D platformer, good little story, good soundtrack, easy 8.5. So
cool.
Well, I said it was too high at 92, and I've got close to it, so clearly they're in the right ballpark. But recommend anyone with a taste of Super Meat Boy or anything like that, or even if you haven't played one of those games, this is quite a nice entry because it gives you a half-decent story to get involved with.
I ain't touching that. They're too... I mean, I just absolutely haven't got the patience for it.
Yeah, which is it's understandable. Well, that's it. Logan's return not cut short, but comes to an end. So we'll get you back when the siege of Paris has been 100%ed in 50 hours. So we'll see.
Once I've done that, PS5 has been bought, initial review on that, etc., etc.
You'll be back on. If anyone has got to the end of this and you're still listening or watching, you can support us via patreon.com/Dimp Digital, where you can join the core community on that front, and that will go into the beer pot for sure. Or you can head over to twitch.tv/Dimp Digital, where you can see said rage streams taking place on various days at various times throughout the week, and you can become a subscriber there. Or if you've got Twitch Prime, which I know it feels like 80% of the population has, you can link that to your Twitch account and it'll give you a free subscription every month. You can go to the Dimp channel and subscribe to us. It won't cost you a penny, but again, we'll drop a couple of bucks, couple of quid our way for doing that. But like I keep saying to people, ain't going to go away if you don't do it. So don't be worrying if you can't. And those that do, thank you very much. And those that have got to the end of this, thanks so much for your time. And ta-ra.
This was a Dimp Digital production.